Hey guys, Pandy351 here, and it's been a while since I've recorded an event video like this. I'm gonna give a trigger warning here at the beginning of the video. I'm gonna be honest, there's no way I'm going to get around this video without crying. I apologize in advance. Some of the things I'm going to be talking about are extremely yucky. I'm gonna try my best to do what I can to help best explain situations, but the long and short of it is, a lot of the conversations I'm going to be talking about in this video are very adult. They are not meant for minors, anyone under the age of 18, so I kindly request that if you are, you do not watch this. Because the things I am going to share are not something that I want to have shared with people who are not old enough. A little while back, I was given something by a friend, and a certain group had decided to make they're working on a second document, and I had gotten kind of an early grasp at some of it. Ironically, there's a bit in part of the document that's like, PC is stalking. And it's really ironic because they're now making a third document, with this group at least, is making basically a third document for, like, someone who has them blocked and stuff. And I think it's ironic to call me the stalker when clearly they're still watching my posts. Like, this document is proof of that. Still actively looking at what I talk about, but, again, clearly, obviously, I'm the stalker because they don't want me doing it. And I could argue a lot of the things in this document, in the first document. I did finally get around to reading the first document a bit more. And the first document has, as I said before, a lot of inconsistencies. I think I said on one of the previous video that I pretty much expected them to make basically a smear campaign, to not really argue any of my points, but more so just point fingers at how I'm a bad person. And that's what the document is, realistically. I could talk about the fact that, I had barely spoken to Mute and they have a part in this. I could talk about the fact that Goat made a statement in this, which is a whole can of worms I wish not to open. And I've spoken with lawyers and stuff. I've been kind of told what I can talk about publicly, and I'm not going to go over the document quite in the way that I normally do. But, I guess this is the closest thing that group's going to get to a response. I could sit here and be quiet about names and not bring up names and censor myself to vent, but I don't deserve to do that to myself. And so I'm not going to. I'm not going to shelter names. I'm not going to hide people. Because I'm done protecting you. I'm done protecting those who've hurt me for the sake of whatever friendship we had. Most of the stuff in these documents I don't feel the need to discuss. Or there's stuff that I can't talk about with the lawyer. I think probably the worst part is that a few of the documents talk about me sexualizing babies, which I'm not even going to get into why that is gross and disgusting. But I think my summary of that is basically just if you hear me playing a toddler character or a baby character, just like how there are millions of actors who have played baby characters before, and your immediate thoughts is something sexual, get help. I can't help you. You need to see a doctor. Because no, an adult playing a baby character is quite normal. In fact, people much older than me play baby characters all the time. If you've ever heard of the show Rugrats, that's a pretty good example of that. But it's nonsense. I mean, it's to the point where like one of my characters made a Moon quote during the Raya episode, the naughty boy, that quote, and they're like, sexualizing the babies. Like, no, I'm quoting the daycare attendant because that's the character I'm playing is also a child attendant, so that's their job. It's why you gotta make it weird though. Why you gotta make it weird. But a majority of these documents is a lot of just nonsense. I know there's a comment in one of them about how I never properly addressed any of this, and I did. I made a post publicly saying I wasn't going to address it. That is properly addressing it. But that's not enough for them, and this isn't for them. This is for me, and I'm going to talk about some pretty harsh things in this. Some of it has to do with that group. Some of it doesn't. And some of it will, in turn, come back to the document. So there is a lot to talk about. We're gonna start with Star. I have always been afraid to talk about her since what had happened a few years ago, because what happened was awful for a lot of people. Oh God, I'm already crying. But I'm going to be honest, I think the most thing that has hurt out of all of this is that whenever Star is spoken about and about when the victims are spoken about, I am left unaddressed. And I know that that is kind of my fault. When that stuff came out, I used other people's voices instead of using my own hurt to talk about it. I was very avoidant because I was very scared of overshadowing. I was very scared of overshadowing the people who had been sexually engaged with by Star, but I, in turn, made it seem like that I, fully in my right mind, made choices that I not only do not agree with now, but didn't agree with then. A few years ago, quite a bit near the beginning of my channel, I would get fan art a lot. And I loved all the fan art I got. I was happy to get anything. And one day I got an at on a certain social platform, and it was this really cool poster of my characters. It was like what you'd imagine them to use, like the promotional posters. And that was really cool to me. It was really cool. And so I replied back to it. I was like, this is really cool. You should do more. And they were like, yeah, sure. And so they did more. And at the time, I was still kind of new. I was looking to grab some other artists to help out with things. And I sent them a message, a private message on the said social platform, and asked, hey, would you want to do this in an official capacity? And they were excited. They said yes. I gave them my Discord, and that was the day that started my friendship with Star. I was friends with Star for quite some time, and me and Star developed a familial relationship where I was in the parental role. The reason this is important is it would get to the point where if Star did anything, people would DM me. Whether it be that Star was having a depressive episode, whether it be that Star just wasn't eating or sleeping, it was constant that people would tattle on her mother to me to get her to behave. And that took a really big toll on my health. I began to feel that I was responsible for her actions and what she did, and that if I didn't stop it, I was being a bad parent. I want to reiterate just how young I was at the time. This year I'll be turning 26. At around that time, I would have been probably 19 to 20. So I was still quite young. I was an adult, but I was still very young. I was unsure that I had autism because it was undiagnosed. I didn't know a lot. And then during recording, Star started to change. She would get violent and aggressive and was overall just honestly an asshole to me. To the point where other cast members would reach out to ask if I was okay after a conversation. It got so violent, and I learned later that Star's stepmother was going through cancer. And the reason that that is important, because again, I would usually not give these details because they are personal, is because she had mentioned that her mom had gone through it, and that was the reason why she was being combative with me, was that she was dealing with that. And at the time, I wanted to be a support to her, so I allowed her to continue to abuse me. And in that process, I had developed a unhealthy attachment to Star, because of my own personal trauma, with my parents. And so it just spiraled. It got to the point where she started controlling how my characters would look. She would not let me have characters the way I wanted to on reference sheets. And it was awful. It got so bad to the point where there is a post on my channel, probably still, and I'll leave it there forever. That is concepts for Bridget's redesign, where we were changing the colors because she was so adamant about me not turning her white and was so aggressive about that. And I couldn't take it, so I had her make me concepts to post. And they agreed with me, and so she'd get mad about that, and it was so much. When I removed her from my cast, it was not because of her actions as a pedophile. I did not know of those at the time. I removed her because of her abuse towards me. Not because of any damage she had done to anyone else, but because she had pushed me so far, and I had finally started to wake up from that fucking nightmare. And then I get a message from a friend, Liam. He's a good kid, and he told me his story, and I crashed. And this is nothing that is Liam's fault. And I want to make it clear that we are still on speaking terms. I am relatively on decent terms with him. But the reason I crashed so hard is because I felt this irrefutable guilt that it was my fault that she had done this because I was her parent. And so I did everything I could to make sure anyone knew. I genuinely felt horrified that I had been used in such a way to interact with minors like that, because I had been used. And in all that, I think people got really confused on the fact that I was just being the voice of those who had been hurt and had not taken themselves back to realize that I had been hurt too. I didn't talk about what she did to me outside of her behavior as Sonia because I didn't think it was relevant of what pain I had gone through. I didn't realize that it was going to be important later on down the road to talk about the nights where she would pull me in VC away from other people just to talk about her dead mother. Or how awful it was her stepmother was dying and how she couldn't do anything about it, how awful she felt. I didn't realize it was important that I had been put through so fucking much pain. Because to me, I hadn't been sexted. I was an adult. I had consented to it all. Sort of. I was her mom. I was supposed to be there for her. One night, I wasn't having a great night. She had been kind of my only adult friend for a while. That changed, but she was really the only person I could talk to about certain things. And I I was having a rough night. She had been my only friend for a long period of time, and after months and months of listening to her tell me that it was her autism was the reason she had sexted a minor, and that she just didn't understand, I made the stupid fucking decision to give her a fucking chance. Because I didn't want to believe that my best friend intentionally fucking sexted minors. Why would I have wanted that? I wanted to believe that she could change. I wanted to believe that she had gotten better. And she hadn't. And I hadn't gotten the chance to see that yet. It was the first time me ever dealing with something on this scale. The only time before I had ever dealt with a pedophile was when I was a minor. And most of the pedophilic stuff wasn't even at me, it was towards one of my friends. So I didn't really know how to deal with any of it. I made the stupid decision to let her back, but one of the things that the document says, and I want to make this adamantly clear because this is insulting to me. When she was allowed back, she was not allowed back as an artist or in the cast server. This never happened. I don't know why it's being framed that she was allowed back in the cast, but this didn't happen. She was never allowed back as a cast member / actor, and she was never allowed back as an artist. She was allowed back in the fan server, which, again, should not have occurred, but it was only the fan server that she was allowed back into. That was it. When she was allowed back, she would make comments in the general chat. At first, it was fine, but then it started to get weirdly passive aggressive, even to the point where I've removed her role as being my child, and she'd make comments about losing another mom. And I couldn't handle it. But I had been so conditioned to just allow myself to be pushed that I let her do it. And one day, while talking with Goat and her, she made a comment about Liam wanting what happened, and it finally broke me out of the influence I had been put under. I finally could look at what she did for what it was, and I kicked her to the curb. And that was the end of my relationship with her. I spent several months after with that, before and after, dealing with countless amounts of harassment, to the point where designs of mine were being stolen, to the point where people would make awful amounts of alt accounts just to say terrible, horrible things. I had somebody who I thought was a friend send me send a friend of mine a DM basically saying I deserved to have been raped because of what happened, or that I hadn't even been raped at all because of what happened with Star. I went through some extreme fucking trauma because of her. And I think any of that group making it sound like me making decisions was based on my own selfish purpose and not rather the signs of somebody who was also going through abuse and grooming is awful, and you should feel bad about it. I know, Moon, you were not the greatest to me during that time. I know that she was also tugging your leg around with Loki. And I understand the pain you went through. Because it is something that I had gone through. However, there is no world in which it excuse your actions towards me. And there is no world in which it excuse your actions now of trying to use me trying to reconnect with the person who abused me as some reason that I shouldn't be trusted. Because I was being abused. I was being groomed. I was being hurt. And it is vile, quite frankly, to read over parts of this document from people and have them completely ignore the fact that you all helped in that. You all pushed me so far with stalking and harassing to the point where I tried to make friends with my abuser again to make it stop. You helped her groom. You helped in this. Should I have continued to bring it up sometimes? Probably not. Because you guys were also being groomed, but to pretend like you didn't participate in things, and to pretend that I wasn't one of the people who had been severely hurt, is mischaracterization of the situation. And I know it's intentional. I know you're intentionally doing that. Because it's exactly as I said before. You can't prove your innocence, so you have to make me seem guilty. And to that, fuck you. Quite frankly, fuck you. But that's not the only thing I'm going to be going over. I'm going to give another trigger warning for this section, and I mean it this time. I do not want minors listening to this because I'm going to go into extreme sexual graphic details, and I do not wish for minors to be watching. There is a bit that I'm going to discuss about my relationship with Destiny, and what happened there. But I'm pretty sure Destiny is 18 now, so time to put on your big boy pants and face the music, I guess. My relationship with Anubis is complicated. What happened to me during that time was vile. It was horrendous, and there is no world in which anyone who continues to support him, knowing what I have told people, there just shouldn't be. I know there are some people who want to bury their head in the sand about what happened with him. I'm not going to be moving around Minecraft a lot at this point because, quite frankly, I need I need to just kind of sit still. I'll probably put myself on Charlotte's stage so I can actually like hear. But I'm not really gonna move around too much because this is going to be rough. This is not something I have spoken about too much publicly. Some of it was mentioned in the video originally talking about what happened. But this is gonna go more into detail. The main reason I didn't want to talk about this and why I shouldn't have had to talk about this is because honestly, I'm scared. I'm afraid he's gonna do something to me. I've kind of always been afraid of that, to be honest. I continue to still have nightmares about a lot of this stuff. And there is there is a world in which maybe I just get left alone, but knowing me, there's no world in which this doesn't come back to bite me in some way. Um, but I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'm sick and tired of being scared. I want this to be known that there were several in my friends group who did know some of this information. But a lot of what I am sharing has not only not been shared publicly, but details of it were admitted privately. I can go over what people knew. I can go over what people did not necessarily know. Well, I'll probably just say what people knew. Because re-explaining the things that people don't know is probably going to be hard. But I started doing Minecraft role plays because I used to watch several YouTubers. Um, ironically enough, ones that which I don't even talk to for the most part, and one whose cast I was kicked out of. Which I'm going to talk about that. Um, which might swing some axes, but I don't fucking care anymore. I'm so fucking distraught about all of this. It was what happened to me was beyond unfair and beyond acceptable, but I don't care to protect people anymore. I'm sick and tired of the way that I was treated and continue to be treated for this. I joined the Discord of one of my favorite actors and I got to meet him, and that would be Anubis. And I felt so special every time I talked to him. I was 18. We have a 6-year age gap that is important. And will be more important later. And we talked all the time. We'd text and message, and I felt a connection with him that became so dangerous to my health that even now I still struggle a lot with a lot of it. Before we started dating, we were in a VC, and I talked to him about something rather personal. I don't want to get into the details too much, but it was something I was quite ashamed of at the time. It was something I did while younger, Cassidy did while younger, and I had been made to feel that I should be scared of myself because of it. And I told him because it meant something to me, and that night he shared a secret with me that should have gotten me to stop talking with him, but I was a fucking idiot, and I was so broken at that point because of my past relationship that I was willing to ignore it. And that is that Anubis engaged in oral sex with his younger sister. His younger sister being the same age as me, and from what I remember, he said that he was in high school. That is a 6-year age gap. If he was 18, she would have been 12. Oldest. I didn't really push for anything else. I think I asked him if she knew, and he mentioned that he just never really talked about it after that point. He swore up and down it never happened again, but Now, knowing what I know from other people and looking up more resources, that is probably not true, unfortunately. And I made the dumb decision of continuing to talk to him. I should have backed out then, quite frankly. I was an idiot. And I fucking hate myself so much for not backing away then because I could have avoided so much pain and so much hurt. I justified it. I felt it was fine because well he was a teenager when it happened and mistakes happen. I didn't know the damage that it would cause on another person to do that. I didn't even know the damage that rape would cause on another person. I mean, I learned sure fast, that's for sure. Anubis then spent months grooming and pushing me until we started dating, and even after that, there was a lot of private role plays that occurred between me and Anubis, in which he would push me to engage in sexual activities with him. Ones that I had mentioned that I was not necessarily comfortable with, but he had asked, and I figured it was fine because it was all in role play. To this day, I can't look at Nox and Nyx the same because they were used for a lot of those role plays, and so was Goldie and Pandy. And I hated it. I hated it so much. Pretty much all of our ships at the time were used for it. Klaus and Violet, Conjurer and Melody, and I, I'm glad that I have long since deleted those chats. Quite frankly, I wouldn't want to show them to anyone, but there's probably some in mine in his DM still potentially. But I don't want to go back to look for it. He would engage in oral sex a lot in those role plays, which I was pretty blunt with him on the fact that I did not want to participate in those things. That I was very much against it, and the thought of it really icked me. He said it was okay, that it was fine because it was in role play, so it didn't matter. I saved up a lot of money for him to come visit me. And the week that he came and visit me was the first week that he raped me. The first time that we initiated sex, I had consented to, and I did not realize just how painful it would be. But he did it wrong, I think. I don't even know because after that point, anytime we had intercourse, there was always blood. Um, and it always really hurt for a while. It stopped after some time, but um, any of you who are on my toy house would know Kiki. She is one of my alters. She is one that will probably never be seen in PPHH. Maybe one day if I can find a way to make it cleaner, I might show her off in Pie. But I think even then that episode will probably have a trigger warning on it because she is vile. And it's not her fault. She was coaxed into existence by a previous partner who wished to initiate intimate activities that I was unwilling to. So he groomed me into having another alter that would participate in those activities. Anubis knew about her, and it was so bad to the point where he then started to initiate conversation with her to get her to come out, to coax her out when I was saying no and didn't want it. At some point, he started engaging in oral, or forcing me to engage in oral. and it broke me. There were house rules that he would break for the sole purpose of getting intimate activities, and obviously I've had this forced shared publicly. Slightly. One of those sessions happened sort of when my youngest sibling was home, and I did not want it. But when we finished, he wanted cuddles, and we were clothed and started cuddling. That's what he wanted, and Ash walked in on it, and that was the point in which she was no longer allowed to return. That happened the second week, though, not the first week. Just to make it clear, um, that is important for reasons I'll explain in a little bit. When the week was over and he went to leave, I was devastated, quite frankly. I had been so hooked into this hormonal arousal of being forced against my will to do things that I thought I was enjoying it when I wasn't. I never was. And this isn't something that I consented to at the time and looked back and went, "Oh, I didn't want this." No, I would say no, and then he would force me into them, and then I would say that I was okay with it because of just how much I would plead with him one of the weeks. It even got to the point where at some point in time we were in a call with several minors, and he started touching me, and I left the call because I didn't want him to do anything where they could hear, because I didn't want them to hear what had happened, what was going on. I didn't want anyone to know because I was ashamed that I couldn't stand up for myself. And when he went to leave, I felt sad because I had been forced to emotionally connect with him in a way that I was unprepared for. I felt that I was useless outside of a partner due to my own familial abuse, that I felt that I had to keep him, and that he stayed. Then he didn't get on the fucking plane, and I wish he had, because then it was a whole other week of him doing that to me. It was awful. It was genuinely the worst. When he did go back, we talked a bit about it. I mentioned at some point that I wasn't super happy about the oral and didn't want to do that again. He mentioned that he had enjoyed it. And so if I would sometimes let him do it, then, he would like that. And pretty much nothing changed. During that time, he started to show signs of much darker issues. He had Jackal, his alternate personality. Before and after this intermediate time, he had explained how Jackal had wanted to take all of Anubis's female friends and put them on an island so that he could keep them safe from scary men. What I didn't know and what was mentioned to Ness at the time was that he would make when he mentioned this, he would make statements about them having their keep, uh, as in like the women there would have to, you know, make them earn being there. I did not know this at the time, um, which kind of leads into the fact that several of my friends who were friends with him at the time were also groomed. Several of them being minors. I will not go into other people's trauma because that is not my fucking place. But I will point it out there that Ness was one of the people who was pretty heavily groomed by him. And Ness's story is for theirs to share, but it is important for what I'm going to discuss later on. Um, so that's there. Um, he would talk about how Jackal would look at any hole and want to shove his dick into it. It got so bad that we had a conversation at some point where he mentioned that Jackal had wanted to fuck his cat. Um, that Jackal had looked at a dog and wanted to fuck it. That he was willing to do it to animals. He also mentioned that he had to keep himself contained sometimes because he thought about doing it to kids. Which made it worse that he would make comments about Ness being Jackal's favorite friend. So, there's that. I heard all of this and ignored every sign of it because this is what I believed is what I deserved. This is what my family had put upon me, what the cult had put upon me, that a woman's only purpose was to be with a man. I want to make it clear that my mother couldn't have known the extent of what I was being put through, but I was pushed towards him a lot during that time due to my parents' behavior, which made a lot of it worse. And the second time he came down, he continued on his tirade. He forced me to shove his dick in my mouth. He even forced me to attempt to swallow his cum at some point, and that didn't work because, quite frankly, it was disgusting. But a lot of this is stuff that I didn't want to share publicly. And quite frankly, I'm still quite ashamed to post this. I will because I think I have to at this point, or else other people are going to tell my story before I even get the fucking chance to. So, congrats, Midnight. If this is what you wanted from you giving details about my rape publicly, then I'm glad. I'm so happy for you. If this is what you wanted. You wanted to hear the desperation and break in my voice, then fine. So fucking be it. This is what you wanted. And you can say this isn't what you wanted. You can say this isn't what you meant. But you can't do what you did to me. And then pretend like this wasn't the consequence of that. So, as the detail that Midnight shared, although shared incorrectly because I never gave the full details, we were cuddling in the bed under blankets. We were not naked. We had been intimate previously, but it was not in the middle of intimacy when it happened. And my youngest sibling walked in the middle of it. My sibling walked out, and I thought that was it. Near the end of the week, my mother sat me down and told me that if Anubis was to stay again, that he needed to stay in a hotel. Because Ash had told Mom that they had seen, and Mom was not okay with him being there. I spoke to Anubis, and he was pissed. He was so fucking mad, and he left. And about a month or two after that, he broke things off with me because we had spoken a few times, and he knew that there was literally no way I was going to convince my mother to let us do that again. That, quite frankly, if it wasn't for her blocking him from staying at the house, he probably would have kept coming over and continued to have raped me in my own fucking home, in my own fucking bed that I stayed in for years. I became deeply depressed at the time, and I spoke to a friend. Um, I will not say that I'm proud of that conversation. I shared intimate details with the only person I considered a friend at the time because of what happened with Pride, which is so great that half of them went on about how I was abusing Anubis when that was what was happening while they were telling me that. So I'm so glad, you guys. I hope you all are happy. I especially hope you're happy, Richard, because you sent me the most vile message in DMs when that happened. The most vile. And it had probably been not even a month since he had raped me. That shit sucked. To find out you're still talking shit is like, Jesus. I don't hold much ill will towards Pride anymore, if I'm being honest. There's a few I hold a little more ill will than others, but a lot of them were minors at the time. They were kids. They did what they thought was best, and they attempted to ruin my life because of it, and I will hate them for that, but I will not hate them for the fact that they thought they were doing the right thing. And I can respect that even if they went about it wrong. Um, I want to make it clear. I don't think any of them will see this. Um, but I know conversations have happened with like Twisty. And I don't think I hold any ill will towards him. Some of the things that were said, on both his and my end shouldn't have happened. And as far as I'm concerned, I would never want to be friends with Twisty again or initiate any form of contact. Um, but I want it to be known that I don't hold any ill will towards Twisty. I don't hold any ill will towards a good chunk of that group. Um, because quite frankly, I'm over it. You all were hurting and you decided to lash that out on me instead of talking with me and understanding me, and that's okay. People aren't willing to understand autistic people very often. But it is something that I was and still am quite used to. But I'm glad that I have made friends along the way who were willing to, and I'm glad that you picked Katniss for no fucking reason. Because then I got my boyfriend, Ness, and he is the most amazing and wonderful person in the world, and I would not really be alive if it wasn't for him some days, so, cheers to that, I guess. After Anubis broke things off, I spoke to a friend. I'm not proud of that conversation. I gave a lot of very gruesome details. Um, and they they apologized to me for being raped, and that was the night that I realized what had happened to me. And I spent time working out how to explain it to people what had happened. Pi was kind of who I told the most details at the time. I told Pi that I had been raped. I told Pi about Jackal and his desires to have intimacy with minors and animals, and I told them about what he had did to his sister. Um, I was very vague about a lot of the details, but I want to make it clear that this is all information that Pi had. And at the bare minimum, my cast had the information that he had raped me, and Jackal, and that he told me he did his sister. Kind of things that were said in the original vent video is kind of what the cast knew, when I first started talking to people about what had happened to me, finally. And that's where we get into Destiny. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance. I am kind of talking about a past event, so I may be more likely to slip up and call Destiny Morgan. That is not a name that they currently go by. I do try very hard not to, but I also did not know that Destiny had even changed their name until this year. Well, last year, within like a year. So, like, I'm not. I still fuck up my sibling's name, and they've been going by their current name since I want to say 2017. So like it's been a good few years. I'm very easy to quick up pronouns and names. I'm worse with pronouns than I am names, but I'm not perfect, and I, quite frankly, would rather keep the mental capacity to keep up with the names of the people I care about than to keep up with the names of people I don't care about. Destiny had been in the cast for a while, and I had had some issues with Destiny interacting with Star after I had made it clear that there were to be no cast members to continue to interact with her the second time. She went back and forth with Star a lot. She went back and forth with several of the other people. That's for them to discuss, quite frankly. And I am just surface level talking about some of this to give a precursor as to what transpired. There were some issues where some of the younger cast members came up to me talking about how Destiny had been pressuring them to interact with Afton's Happy Juice. One of which was a minor at the time who had some severe trauma with their parents being alcoholics. This is something that I do not believe that Destiny was aware of, but I do believe Destiny had enough intuition, no matter how young they were at the time, to interact with people in such way. I want to preference that I do believe Destiny was about 13, or at least that is what I had been told. I found out later that some of this was while Destiny was 12. I did not know that was their age. They had lied. So I want to make it very clear that some of this was in the idea that this is a 13-year-old that I was interacting with, not a 12-year-old. And that distinction is important. But even so, it doesn't really matter how old you are. It doesn't change that no means no. And Destiny had a real issue with that. I would tell Destiny not to push the happy juice on people. I would tell Destiny not to even talk about the happy juice because, quite frankly, I didn't really want to acknowledge that it happened. Um, because it was just a very weird thing to do back when I did it. I try to avoid having the animatronics get drunk now for a reason because it's kind of weird. The adults, it's fine, but the animatronics feels weird. I don't do that anymore. Pandy's a special case because she's Pandy, but other than that, I try to avoid that as much as possible. Um, but Destiny would push it a lot, especially behind the scenes to two minors in particular. I had to tell them to knock it off because of how bad it got, and even then, they still continued it for a while. Um, Destiny would make a lot of statements to other cast members that would piss them off. I remember one time, and there are screenshots of that, um, of I think I shared those in the one of the videos. Um, there there was an incident in where they were making jokes about having a heart attack while currently a cast member had their family in the hospital for heart issues. This was something that Destiny was aware of because all of us in the cast were aware of. That's why they were making the joke about it, actually. And it got to the point where they left the other person left the cast for a period of time, and I had to add them back because they were so pissed about the jokes being made. I tried to explain to Destiny that the jokes were not appropriate, that they had hurt the person's feelings, and they just did not get it. In fact, they made it about them. They went on to like pity party about how they felt so bad and that they always do everything wrong, and it was not a fun day. I hit a point at the end of that day where I just was like, I'm not talking to you anymore until you can apologize to them sincerely, and I left it at that. All of this to say, we were already having issues with this particular individual. Um, some of them being minor, some of them being more severe. But the main reason I want to talk about this is because obviously, as Destiny was in Pi. Destiny was aware of some of the things that were happened with me and Anubis. Not in graphic details, as most of Pi were minors at the time, but they were briefly told that I had been raped. It had been told to them that Anubis had made comments about doing it with his sister. And they had been told that they had made comments about wanting to interact with minors and animals sexually. And that was the most of what Destiny was told. I understand that that's not details, so maybe they just didn't understand how wrong it was. I want to be clear, I was a pushover during this time. I was very adamant that I did not want to interact with Anubis, but I had been very loose about my friends interacting with Anubis. And the reason I want to say this is because they have, in the second document, have screenshots of Silent, SK, and Ness interacting on Anubis, Slender's realm, where Anubis was. I want to make it very, very clear. Go fuck yourself. I wish, quite frankly, for this, seeing this, for you to eat shit and die. How fucking dare you? How dare you tell me who I get to forgive and not forgive for interacting with the person who fucking raped me? How fucking dare any of you insinuate in any way, shape, or form that my relationship with my friends, with my partners, has anything to do with him? Like, quite frankly, I would not publicly make comments about not wishing a person alive. But I am genuinely, this is why I made this this video. I'm genuinely so fucking mad. No, I'm not gonna go kill you, okay? This is not a death threat. Alright, do I wish harm upon you? A little bit. But I want to make it clear this is not a public death threat. I'm not gonna do anything to harm any of them. Unless you count the fact that I'm getting lawyers involved. Because this is grown to a level that is unacceptable. What happened between me and Destiny was that whenever I got upset, Destiny would push for me to go onto Slender's realm. The reason I didn't go onto Slender's realm is because Anubis actively used the realm on a constant basis. It was to the point where Anubis would check with people when others were online. And the reason that is important is because the one time I went on the realm, Anubis joined at least 5 minutes after, to which I found out that Destiny was the one who mentioned that the two of us were on the realm. Destiny told the person who raped me where I was. Now, beyond the fact that age is questionable, Destiny was a minor. There is no world in which Destiny being there meant any protection for me against Anubis. And I want to make that clear. Crystal fucking clear. Because that's the argument that was made during that. By the way, I want to preface the fact that the first document, Destiny made all these accusations. 17 pages of accusations about how I'm a terrible person. But the main reason they were removed, they decided it's been 14 years. They're fine with PC being upset. They just weren't very smart. They were unable to understand the situation. And since they don't really want to reignite that flame, they just aren't going to talk about it. But apparently, Moon deserves an apology for Destiny invalidating their rape. But Destiny going out of their way to put me into dangerous situations They just don't want to reignite that flame. What happened between me and Destiny at that point was it was over the span of at least several months where I would tell Destiny that I did not want to be on Slender's realm because Anubis was on there. I told Destiny this repeatedly. I repeatedly explained that it was because he had raped me. I repeatedly explained because he was a pedophile, a pervert, and wanted to fuck animals. I continuously explained that it had to do with the fact that he interacted inappropriately with his sister that was the same age as me. I don't give a shit how old Destiny is. I don't give a shit on whether Destiny didn't really understand what the action of rape properly entailed. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I said no. I said no repeatedly. And it got so bad that one night I got fed fucking up and I lost my shit in DMs with Morgan. I full on explained to them, and this is a screenshot they wanted to share in this second document. I even explained, this is not about you, because I was feeling upset that day. And they were like, oh, let's go play on there. And I was like, this isn't about you. He raped me. You made me feel like shit because you didn't care what harm he did to me. All you can think about is yourself. Morgan replied that they just wanted to have fun. They wanted things to be okay again. They knew they weren't. They felt bad that I was hurt, but just wanted me to feel better. And they said, and I quote, I thought, oh, maybe if I help Pandy have fun, that will make Pandy feel better. This is after several times of talking with them about how I didn't like SMPs. So I didn't even like Survival Minecraft. And I had mentioned that if they ever wanted, I had even redirected to say if they wanted to play games with me, we could go play Murder or go play something else on Hypixel. Like, it didn't have to, like, I did not like Survival. This is something Morgan had been told. Destiny had been told repeatedly. Destiny had been told this several times. I had redirected this several times. This is not a one-time conversation where suddenly I threw onto Destiny that I had been raped. They had been told. It doesn't matter how young Destiny was. That does not matter. I said no. I redirected. I even gave them things they could do to make me feel better. When it came to gaming together, they could have suggested literally anything else, but they kept insisting on suggesting the one thing that I did not want to do. I lost it. How would being in a stressful place make me feel better? I told Destiny that I was upset, that they were upsetting me by continuing to push. And they would keep pushing. Like, in this, what had happened prior to this conversation is literally we were sitting there and Destiny kept pushing me. And I kept saying no. I kept explaining why no. I kept saying that we could do other things, but Destiny wanted to do this. And that was why I lost it, saying that it wasn't about them. That me being upset because of what was happening had nothing to do with them and their feelings. And I'm sick and tired of having to placate to them all the fucking time. But I didn't want to do it. Now, after that conversation had occurred, where I finally lost my shit with them, they turned around and had a conversation with Silent, in which, by the end of it, again, that is something for Silent to explain, because it's not my trauma. But by the end of the conversation, Silent came to me sobbing. They were sobbing. I comforted them the best I could, and after all the previous issues that had happened with them, along with this, I had enough. And so I removed them. I made it very clear I didn't want anything to do with them, which is hilarious now that they took Surprise, because what Surprise represents to me, And what she still represents is a fucking child who thought they knew better and that they didn't give a shit about any of the people around them. They didn't care for their friends. They didn't care for people's safety because as long as they're happy, who the fuck cares? Destiny was on my blacklist at the point that they got surprised, by the way. Which is really funny because they know that they got it when they weren't supposed to. And eventually that'll come to bite them in the butt. But until then, I am beyond fuming that occurred, but quite frankly, I don't care. I still own the, like, death and stuff. The concept of the surprise puppet is still mine. It's just the design I sold. They can have the design. I don't give a shit. But now they've gone on to go on about how my friends making jokes about them deserving a swirly means I'm threatening, or that I have allowed my friends to threaten their life. It's a swirly, motherfucker. I don't care. Like, I'm sorry that hurt your little baby feelings, but you sat in a VC and told me that my feelings of my rape didn't mean shit because you just wanted to play Minecraft. Well, you only did it to make me feel happy. No, you fucking didn't. No, you didn't. You never did. This was never about me. It was never about me. It was about what you wanted. Not only have I never gotten a proper apology from that, never, but then my ex turned around and continued to speak with them after what had happened. Now, I'm not going to get into that, how fucked up that was, because, by the way, Goat knew what had happened. Goat was there for quite a lot of those conversations, for quite a lot of the times in which I told Morgan, or Destiny, it was Morgan at the time, but it's Destiny now. No. Like, Goat was there for that. Goat knew what Destiny had done and continued to contact with them. So, you can make up whatever justification you want in your stupid little head, Goat. Whatever justification you want for why that's acceptable. I would never have done that to another human being, much less the person that I called my partner. No matter how much you hate me now. That's fucked. And you know that's fucked. You knew that was so fucked at the time that you didn't tell me you were doing it. And you intentionally did it behind my back. You're just as shitty of a person for all of this. Like, quite frankly. But, you know, what can I say? You're talking with a pedophile now, so you can just piss off as far as I'm concerned. Swear in your language if it makes you feel better. But what I went through with Anubis was the worst thing I had ever gone through. It is still to this day the worst thing I've ever gone through. There is quite frankly nothing this group could do that would make it worse. Nothing. Because that is the worst thing that had ever happened to me. I made it very clear at the time that was the worst thing, and I don't give a shit how old Destiny was. What happened was unfair. It was unfair that their feelings meant so much more. Was it because they were teenagers? Yeah, because they were a self-censored piece of shit. Do I think Destiny is still that way now? Probably not. I mean, I would hope not, but then again, they wrote this document, so clearly they're still thinking about me, and not thinking about maybe the repercussions that could have come from a friend of mine basically saying to my face that them wanting to have fun was more important than the pain I had endured, because that definitely had no negative side effects. I say very sarcastically. The pain I endured for your sake, Destiny, was immense. Now, we could go through all the skin stealing thing on how you didn't have access to the skins, even though they were put in your DMs and were only deleted recently because I decided to delete them, but I have screenshots of them still being in our DMs. So there is proof of them being there. So you can go on to say that's not a thing, not like you can't just download skins from any of the skin websites or anything like that. You can go on what other path you want to about how whatever. I can pull back up the document with the section because quite frankly it's a lot and a lot of it's bullshit, so I just I'm not gonna have this memorized in my head. I don't think that's fair to expect from me. You can go on about how me dead naming you meant something, even though it doesn't, because I didn't even know you changed your name. Like, you changed your screen name, but that didn't mean you changed your name. I didn't know. I just saw you two were interacting, and that's it. We can ignore the fact that you met up while a minor with an adult who has pedophile allegations. I don't blame you for that. You were probably groomed into that. So I kind of apologize for that. I think that was a stupid decision, but I don't blame you for that. Honestly, if anything, that just kind of makes me believe that you're still the same gullible child you were back when I knew you, because you were just so fucking quick to go back to Star. So I'm really not surprised. I feel bad, but not much I can do there. Um, we can talk about the fact that Moon made several comments about wanting to kill you previously, which is crazy. Um, we could go over the Jerkoons and how that is entirely a species of mine that you gave to me. We spoke about it. There may not necessarily be screenshots of that, but we did speak about it. Um, but you have decided to come back and change your mind later, so not much can be said there. I also came up with the name. Although ironically, I think in part of this it mentions Fun Day being taken, which is ironic, because I didn't take I didn't take Fun Day. It was given to me by Goat. There's probably DMs on that where Goat gave me the art because I wouldn't have gotten the art otherwise. Like, how do you think I got all the art from that? But yeah, no, there was a joke about the swirly. I'm not even gonna go into why in the wild world that is nonsense. Especially because I don't even think in the original, because when you were originally were around, we hadn't even connected the deaths to um we hadn't even connected the deaths to the puppets when you were around. So at the time, yours was just a dead child, and we connected later on about Surprise being in the toilet. The fact that you even know that is insane. But whatever. But no, there's no attempting near death threat because also, and this is something this group has repeatedly in here, and I want to make this apparently clear because apparently these people are so fucking brain dead. Touch grass, for fuck's sake. A death threat has to be public or direct. Like, I have to directly tell you to, I don't know, jump off a bridge or that I'm going to come hunt you down. That has to be directly said in private messages with close friends saying, I really fucking hate this person. I wish they would die is not a death threat. Making jokes like, ugh, this person needs a fucking swirly. That's not a death threat, and the fact that you're making it to be that is outrageous. Even making art of, like, a character stabbing another is not a death threat if it's posted completely privately between friends. The issue is when it's public, and the reason I need to explain that is because they seem to like bringing this up, mostly because of another member in their group, Day Night, who made public threats against my safety that I brought up, and their response is, well, you make threats about it in private. No. No, that's not the same thing. It doesn't. It's not the same thing because you take a screenshot and share it to the person who the threat was for. Like, that doesn't make it suddenly public. This was private. I'm allowed to vent about this. It is in fact very healthy, and the fact that you're making it out to be unhealthy is kind of weird. But yeah, no, I'm gonna be honest. I hadn't been keeping track of Destiny at all for like until like stuff with Goat had happened. I had not cared to pay any attention. I didn't notice that they updated thing. I There are messages where I do call them the right name and then call them the wrong one. That does happen because I'm not perfect and I'm not that good with names. And I mean, it's to the point where, like, I call the party puppets their actual names, and we had to make it their dead kid names because of how bad it gets sometimes. Like, that's even an in canon thing because of how bad it gets. We literally had to redo so many episodes where the puppets had their name changed because they weren't supposed to be mentioned, and I just used the wrong name constantly to the point where I don't even edit when the mistake happens anymore because it just is so bad otherwise. Like, this is ridiculous. Honestly, this is a ridiculous ask. Like, ask for me to try to use the correct name. That's perfectly valid. And I want to not invalidate that request because I think that is a perfectly fine request. But I think when we start getting into, well, it's dead naming because this isn't my current name, and you're intentionally doing this, even though there are blatant messages where they do call me the right name, is like, it's very clear I'm trying, and you're trying to make that into dead naming. Which also, by the way, just isn't the same when it's an online username versus your IRL name. Just want to throw that out there. That calling an old username your dead name is kind of insulting and really cringe. Mostly just insulting. Um, but yeah, as you can tell, I've most emotion has gone out of my voice. I'm completely numb. Because talking about such horrific things is truly not fun for me. I want to make it clear that I do not wish for harassment to happen to anyone I've mentioned in this video. Um, there are a few people that I might feel that they deserve it, but I don't want that. I especially don't want that from any of you because we're better than that, quite frankly. Um, and especially since a few of them have had people message me very harassy things. So, you know, which is funny because they talk about how I keep harassing them, even though I've never publicly engaged with them in any way, but I do have mountains of screenshots of them either making alt accounts to harass me, to directly engage in conversation with me after I had blocked them, or them having their friends do so. Um, the second document actually has quite a bit of proof of that. Although I don't think they've realized that, and so I'm not going to share because I think it'll be really funny if they post it publicly with that evidence still being there. There's actually quite a lot of evidence in that second document that just like is really contradicting towards their points. But it wouldn't be the first time. It's not like the first document didn't have a little screenshot of my IRL sibling from Goat, who did not have their consent to be involved. But I'm gonna mock it because it's really funny that the caption before the screenshot was like, proof that I reached out to PC's family when they went to kill themselves. And the screenshot is literally my sibling reaching out first to ask if they're okay. It was, in fact, not them initiating conversation, but my sibling initiating it. So fuck you for that. You're dumb. That was like, quite frankly, the entire section. It's a lot of like I agree with a lot of points from it. I 100% think that is your point of view, and that's fair. You're allowed to have that. I do think that screenshot is fucking crazy, all things considering. But also it's just like, come on, man. Like, you're intentionally trying to bring my IRL family into this. Like mentioning that you reached out would have been one thing, but like to show a screenshot is wild. It's even wilder that you showed a screenshot that literally proves you wrong. But you know, the document is like, that's the main reason I haven't even like gone over the document. If I ever will go over it any more than this, is because it is the most like batshit bullshit thing I have ever read. I think even now, actually reading over it and not just hearing from my friends what's in it, it's even more wild. Like, it's to the point where some of them are claiming that they own animals or own the colors of the rainbow. Like, this is legitimately the craziest thing I think I've had to read. But in all of this, I think at the end of the day, I have been forced to talk about stuff that I am deeply uncomfortable with the fact that this video is going to post. But I literally have to at this point, because there's no way to get around what was done to me. There's no way to get around of what had happened to me. And there's no way to get around about the fact that, you know, while some of the deeper, darker details were never shared with another person, you knew this stuff. Some of you knew more about this stuff than others, but this is stuff all of you knew at certain points and still attempted to continue with this. Like, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm done. And I'm just gonna post this video and cry about it later. Because quite frankly, I don't deserve what is happening. I don't. And this is I'm not gonna sit here and cry about that or play pity. What you guys have done is fucked up. And one day it'll bite you in the butt. Karma's a bitch. And it'll bite you in the ass, and I shrug. I don't know. I don't care. I mentioned this to friends, and I'm throwing it out there. For the most part, there's no world in which any of them reach out to me in which I talk to them ever again. There's like one or two where if they reached out to me and made public apologies on the platform where they helped slander me, and were to be willing to backtrack on stuff, then maybe I'd allow some communication. But I think even then, there's no way that I would let them any close to me ever again. Because fuck you. Why would you do this? Like, this is beyond just you want to cause me hurt because you are upset that I called you out. And what's ironic in all of this is like there's more evidence that keeps coming forward about shit that's been done. And will I cover it all? Probably not. But I just think it's really ironic to have Moon be mad about me not making a document and putting it in videos to refute his claims. But then he makes it in the most like neurodivergent, aggressive font ever. Like, homie, I literally have had to take months to read this because I can't. I've shared this with coworkers in other casts and have had them straight up tell me that they are surprised anyone could read this because it's barely legible. And I think I'm just like, if you're gonna make a document, at least make it so people can read it. That's the most confusing thing about this, is this is like unreadable, quite frankly. But yeah, no, kick rocks. Some of you can piss shit and die. I don't care. Um, and I've had enough of this, and I'm allowed to have enough of this. And I don't need to justify why I'm to the point where I might wish for some of you not to be alive anymore. Because you've pushed me past a breaking point, and you have for years. And I'm tired of it. I'm not doing this anymore. Beyond this, I don't think I'll talk about any of this ever again. Quite frankly, I don't want to. I don't even want to think about this time in my life. Um, but I hope you guys are happy with yourselves that you forced this upon me for me to relive this for entertainment, and I'm gonna monetize the shit out of this because I deserve money for at the very least being traumatized for the shit. So I'm unapologetically gonna do that. I'm just beyond pissed at this point, to be honest. God, God. The only details I ever shared was for the concern of the people who I was close to, because at the time the idea of being raped by someone who was your partner was foreign to me because of the cult that I was raised in, and I was scared other people may not know this and have wanted so desperately to share that bit of knowledge so other people wouldn't get hurt. And in doing so, that warning has been weaponized against me. Fuck you for that. Fuck all of you for that. I quite frankly hope you rot. Because you don't deserve better than that. You really don't.